I walk by it and I happen to just like kind of look and catch a glance, and I'm like, there is in a cage in there, and I'm terrified of so I'm by myself. I'm trying to help these guys move. I'm being struck with new things I had no idea where I'm like, in there.
This is the Real Millionaire Investor Podcast. I'm Ben Magny, and you are?
Shayna Alessandrini.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
And so we have known each other for a long time.
A couple years, yeah.
Yeah. Technically, we met on my birthday. Because you're my older sister.
Yeah. Okay.
And so the thing that I really noticed is all these years, Dad and I built our portfolio, and we only knew what it meant for us to do our own thing.
Yeah.
And then I became a realtor, and I realized there's a million different viewpoints on what real estate investing is, what should be done, shouldn't be done, tons of false data, right? Yeah. And realized there needs to be some way that people can understand what it really means to be a real estate investor. And so I've watched you and Adam been doing this for a while now, just steady Eddie, buy a property. I think that you guys are actually one of the best examples I've ever seen of someone who's not getting like mixed up with all the hype of it, but just going, okay, good. We have some money. We're gonna invest some money, some invest. And now, how many units do you guys own now?
Well, we have 9 doors.
Okay. And so
as far as actual properties,
the 9 doors, that was the main thing.
I mean, yeah. We have a variety of different types of properties.
A triplex?
So we have 3 single-family homes.
Yep.
A triplex.
Yep.
A duplex, and a condo. I don't think I mixed anything.
No,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
And before I can't remember the timing, did you buy Turner, which is your triplex?
Yeah, that was first.
That was first. Were you working for Mom and Dad at the time? I can't remember, because you worked for us for a short period.
I was pregnant with, it was 2015, because I was pregnant with Olive.
Okay, good. And so okay, good. So were you already done working because you worked for
I think I may have still been working for them for a little bit. Okay,
good. So the first time that you did real estate kind of as your business would have been when Mila, your first daughter, was born, and you came to work for us.
Yeah, when Mila was born, and I went on my maternity leave and realized I was really bored, and so it was great. I lived very close to Mom and Dad at the time, so I just put Mila in her little stroller and just like wheeled over to Mom and Dad's and just started doing admin work that turned into doing the bills, and then it turned into like creating this whole system to do collections and all these other things. So yeah, that worked out for a little bit of time, but I got to kind of like dabble in it where, Mom was like, okay, go show this property, or we're going to take this application, so I'm going to show you how to process it. And so a little bit by bit, I just kind of organically learned how to do these things that you would kind of learn if you were in a family somewhere and they were showing you, okay, good, we're going to show you now how to wash the dishes. And then you leave your house going, I know how to wash dishes. Okay, dumb analogy, but the concept of like getting hatted on how to do something that then you can go, that you just go, oh, I know how to do this. And you realize you actually learned how to do it in another thing. You're like, oh, okay, I can.
Which is not how most people learn real estate. It was something that I think is a nice benefit to you guys, that you guys got to kind of poke into what Dad and I and Mom were doing.
Right.
Without.
Well, and I did that part of it.
Yeah.
The admin, that area. Whereas Adam was like, cool, I have money I want to throw at something,
Yeah.
you know, and all that. So, yeah.
Before you worked for us, did you already want to own properties, or how did that actually come up that you guys?
No, not at all, actually. I mean, I kind of thought I would do stuff with you guys, but then, you know, Adam just started looking at like, well, we could buy something. And this was like, you know, this whole thing, which is just this completely terrifying thought. Like I think we had only owned our own first home for maybe 2 years before we bought. Is that right? No. But anyway, 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
So we're just getting into being homeowners, and Adam's like, cool, let's go
Do it again.
Let's go do something that's terrifying. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do something terrifying. And he's like, we're going to do this. And this is how we go through life. And it seems to all work out in the end, where, you know, he's always putting that future there. And, you know, I'm like the wife who's like, cool, I will support, you know, but it works out good because there needs to be someone who's creating that future and someone behind it who's like, okay, good, I'll help put stuff in place. But like, they're just two different hats, you know?
I really agree with that. And it's funny, when I did an interview with Dad, he was talking about he could handle the physical properties and he didn't want to have anything to do with the people.
Right. But
fortunately,
yeah.
Mom,
Yeah,
who's
yeah.
the sweetest person ever,
Yeah.
just wants to hear everyone's story.
Yep.
But it doesn't have to be that you have to be a married couple to own real estate, but I think it helps to have that partner there.
I mean, it's just that next layer in your marriage, really. Okay, we got married, we own a home, but do we have any investment properties yet? Where are we in this marriage cycle? Anyway, 22 years we've been married, so we're still going. But yeah, no, I mean, I would say honestly, like just kind of having that figured out of like, it is good to have somebody wear the different hats, you know,
Yeah.
and that was something that I learned early on that Dad was saying, like, you know, it's 3 things. It's like, can you handle people?
Yep.
Can you handle money? And can you handle the physical maintenance of the properties you
Yeah.
own? And it's funny how people find the areas that they don't want to do immediately. And so then that's going to be someone else's thing. So like for Adam and I, he was very smart with the money, found the properties, got them there. He did his share of maintenance, but same thing. I handle all of the tenants. So yeah, so it's kind of this interesting thing. Basically every year we kept adding to our portfolio, like, okay, you know, and that was Adam. They're just kind of creating that extra thing to do.
Yeah.
And then I think when we got to like the 9th door, I was like, okay, cool. I think, you know, and we were both working full time at the time as well. And so it was like, this was additional to that. So we kind of hit that point for ourselves that was like, okay, we have to think about those 3 points, but there's on that scale of now you have that many more people who could have a problem.
Yeah.
But when no one has a problem, you're like, why don't I have more?
Yeah.
When everyone's having a problem, it's like, it's not fun. You're like, it's not as fun. You're like, why is everyone whining? But the thing is, you have to realize that, again, I know this is my interview, but I'm thinking of things that Dad said about just like, you know, if you're willing to handle the barriers
Yeah.
that will come up, like you first have to decide and know what your barriers are going to be. Your biggest barriers, really, if you have the money and you have the property, it's going to be your ability to handle people, and it's going to be your ability to make sure that your property stays in good shape and you understand how to have proper maintenance done and keeping an eye on things and just thinking about it as these are your investments. So, you know, I can't say I'm perfect. I'm not doing this interview to tell everybody like I did it once the right way and nothing ever bad happened. I definitely have some stories
Like what?
Like, well, so one of our first single family homes that we had was actually our primary residence. And when we moved out of that, we decided to rent it.
Yeah.
This is where both of my kids were born. This is our first house. It's like, it has a lot of sentimental value.
It's a special place.
It's a special place, right? This is where my kids did blah, and they had their first birthday parties. And so anyway, we moved out, did some simple renovations. Long story short, my husband and I were going out of town, and I was like, listen, I really want to get this rented before we go to town. I get these guys, and I knew when I think back on this, I'm like, the signs were all there. I just wasn't willing to like look at these points that.
Yeah.
And anyway, so I take these guys. It's a family, husband, wife, and a couple kids. And anyway, it was a hard time verifying the income, which that is one of the key things to having someone live somewhere, is that they can't afford it.
That's a big one.
Yeah, like money. You're not doing this for charity. You need to make money. Anyway, we get them in there. Great, cool, fine. They pay 1 month, they pay a second month, then they start slipping. Then, the things, it's the this, the that, don't worry, blah, blah, blah. Okay, anyway, this drags out, and I'm like, I don't think this is good. One thing I actually did do with them, because I wasn't completely dumb on this, is I did sign a 6-month lease.
Yeah. So
the benefit of that is that I had some power, that I didn't completely give up an entire year.
So then what?
Then I basically realized, okay, I have to kick these guys out. But I didn't really realize what had formed in my house in the meantime. Meaning, okay, so first remember, this is a house where my family, this, that, whatever, I thought the next people would just be like me, taking wonderful care of this place.
Yeah.
Yeah, so good. You guys got to be out. Sorry, it's just not working out anymore. I've done all the things you're not supposed to do. I've told them I'll take their security deposit, which you never do. You just don't ever take that as rent. That's just a separate thing, because then that just gives them more time to be there.
That was something you did. You took their security deposit.
Like they can't pay.
Well, then we'll just take the security deposit.
So now this is turning into they're just getting more time in the property. Anyway, so I drive by one day and I see the moving truck there. I'm like, oh, great, they're moving out. They're supposed to actually be returning the key. So I'm just going to stop in. And I walk in by myself. And it's like after I drop the kids off at school, and I'm looking around the house and I'm like, there's no way they're moving. There's just stuff everywhere. And I just happened to glance out at the backyard, which was a decent sized backyard. And it's just filled with junk. And I'm like, what possibly is happening there? I later found out that these two people were going to start a thrift store. So they were collecting items to eventually have a thrift store. And I'm like, okay, cool.
That wasn't an item on the application.
No,
are you planning to start a thrift store?
It's actually not do you have businesses that have closed that you're going to be using this as storage? So anyway, I'm trying to keep my composure, because I realize there's no one moving out of this house. Everybody's there, and I'm just, okay, great. Listen, you guys really need to move out this weekend. And this has been like, at this point, they're paying nothing. I need to get them out. So it's Saturday now. My husband's out of town.
Yeah.
You're out of town. Dad's out of town. There are no men in my life left in this area that I now need to go. I got to go check on these guys. I got to make sure they're moving out.
Yeah.
So I tell Michelle, your wife, hey, so I'm going to need you to watch the kids for just like a couple hours. I'm going to go over, I'm going to help them move. I'm just going to help them move. So I get there, and they're very confused why I'm here. Like, I'm like, let me help you move. What can I help you? And again, remember, this is like they know they need to move, but they would prefer to just, I don't know, act like it's not happening. But I just decided I don't want to evict these guys. Where are they going to go? Anyway, this was my gentle eviction, as I call it. I basically started walking around the property. Okay, do you guys need this? Is this trash? You know, and trashing it or whatever, and doing this. And then there's like a little shed in the back that, you know, whatever, a little closet area. I walk by it and I happen to just like kind of look and catch a glance, and I'm like, there is a snake in a cage in there. And I'm terrified of snakes. So I'm by myself. I'm trying to help these guys move. I'm being struck with new things. I had no idea where my snake in there. Okay, so now I'm starting to kind of talk. Oh, there's snakes there. Oh yeah, we used to have a pet store that closed. Okay, good. So now I have confirmed that we have a thrift store starting in the backyard. We have a closed down pet shop of what's left of it in my shed. And I've got to get these guys literally moved out. So, man, anyway, that was very hard because, you know, I still have compassion for these people because they're people. So whatever, we're getting loads done. We're throwing away trash. It's finally the end of the day. The sun's starting to set. I'm like, guys, I got to get you out of here. Minimally, we've got to get the house locked up and I need the key.
Yep.
So I'm telling all the kids, do you guys need to use the bathroom? Right? The mom has a baby. So she's making a bottle. Good. Warm up the bottle. And I'm holding the baby and I'm like, you know what? I'm like,
what am I doing?
What did I sign up for? I'm like, this is real estate investment 101. No, I don't think so. No.
I don't think so.
So, but this was real interesting because then, anyway, I get everybody out. I'm locking the door. They're all just sitting there. You know, they finally got everything out, but I went, okay, never again. And the moral to the story is, I guess you kind of sometimes have to learn these things yourself, even though someone may have told you, but you actually, there's just these key points. One, do not ever rent to someone who can't afford it. It seems like in the beginning you're doing somebody, you're like the favor kind of seems there. Trust me, that is so
work.
Out of my world. No, the favor is to tell them, no, you can't afford this, and help them to see correctly what they can't afford. It's a rude awakening. You either need to go make more money, you know, or you need to find something that is in your budget. But it's, you know, so anyway, that was a story of my first house that I turned into a rental, that I realized that you don't need to just take someone to take it. Have an empty property is in such better shape than it rented with the wrong tenant.
Absolutely. I don't know if you remember, and by the way, it's impressive that you didn't just get rid of the house and never do any real estate again, because that is how a lot of people do it. That was not a good,
but see, I already had owned another property. We had Turner.
Okay.
But this was a different angle to it, being like, this is my bathroom and this is my, you know.
Which doesn't work, by the way,
so
for the landlord.
Yeah, and I have to say, after that whole thing, it was not my property. It was not my house anymore. This was a rental property.
I don't know if you remember this, but you called me when you were doing this.
I do remember that, yeah.
And I didn't know about the snakes. So, but I knew that you were having problems with the tenants.
Yeah.
And because you used to call me or mom or dad and go, here's a thing that's happening. What's your advice on how to handle the tenant or the security deposit? And you called me and you're like, yeah, you know, it's like, we're getting out, but we got to find a way to get rid of these snakes. And I just lost it, because for all of the stories we have, we don't actually have a snakes story. We have
That's true. I definitely added to the.
We have everything else, but we didn't have. So it's so perfect, because we've encountered so many things, and for years when you and and our other sister Sarah didn't have anything to do with this world,
Yeah.
we would have family dinner.
Yeah.
And we would kind of casually mention a thing.
Yeah, some random
that had happened.
freaking thing that you're like,
And Sarah goes, wait, what?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So anyways, you have the snakes.
Yeah, no,
story
I
now.
definitely have the snakes. And I mean, it's perfect for me because I'm completely terrified of them. And it's like having to face your fears in a situation where you're realizing, like, I'm going to have to do something with those snakes, you know, or whatever. So anyway, yeah.
So what I think is one of the biggest disconnects from all of the years that I spent running all of our properties with Dad, and I'm cleaning out old refrigerators and I'm putting down tile and we're carrying stoves up and doing all this stuff, and then becoming a realtor, is there's almost no one who's talking about what actually happens once you buy the property.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a good point.
If you go, you know, I became a realtor and I would see other realtor goes, here's what the property is. And it was like a spreadsheet and
Yeah.
it says like, here's the income, here's the maintenance, here's the things. And you're just like, there's nothing on here about when the tenant is crazy and runs the water for a week straight,
Yeah.
you know, or the evictions or all the things. I likened it to if everyone was saying you should go buy a restaurant, but no one ever mentioned food, is kind of this thing that happens with rental properties.
Yeah.
Is nobody's talking about there's human beings
Yep.
and they live in this space. What do you do when they say I don't have a job anymore? You know, how do you handle that? And I don't think that can be done quickly. Like you can't learn that quickly. Right.
I mean, if you think about every person is different, has a different set of circumstances. You know, if you're looking at it from the point of like a playbook and you're like, oh, I have this type of tenant, so I'll do this. You know, but then they also have this, you know, it's like, it doesn't always just read across a line and be like, this is always this. It's like your ability to take the thing in present time and not go, oh, this is just like this other. It's like, no. Whatever the thing is, it's like, you gotta, at that point, you gotta help the person.
Yeah.
Which I feel like is something that, you know, creating a good relationship with your tenants is also really important.
It's huge.
Like how you set that tone and what your purpose is. And it's like, for me, I love, you know, having people rent from me who really love where they live.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel like, you know, it's got to be the right fit. So somebody walks in and looks at something and they're like, I do not try and push that person to live in my property. That is the perfect way of going.
Exactly.
At that time to just tell them, hey, this is totally up to you. Like, this is a big decision for you. If it's not your thing, I'm not offended.
Yeah.
But the guy who walks in is like, oh my gosh, this is beautiful and I love it. And this is where I want to blah, blah, blah. And I'm going to put this here and that. That person creating on the space for themselves, you're like, yes, I want to do this, you know?
When we were newer and didn't know what we were doing yet, I would remember, because sometimes people walk in when they're looking at the place and they're almost acting like they're supposed to be negotiating the way that you would when you buy a house.
Yeah, yeah.
You're trying to like have like kind of like your poker face on and maybe you're not so certain. Maybe I'm going to go look at some other places.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that. The landlord wants you to love it. There's no negotiating. So you either love it or you leave because I don't want to deal with.
Yeah, you're not going to end up in some situation where you're like, oh, how did I accidentally rent to that guy? You know, or I tricked him into rent. No, this is someone where they live.
No,
you know?
then the first time that something happens, it's going to be a problem.
Totally. Yeah.
And so do you guys have plans for another one? Getting the next space? I'm asking not as your realtor.
No. I feel like it's at an like an inappropriate question, like, are you going to have more kids? Are you
I
gonna...
know, it did sound like that.
That is so
That's none
rude.
of your business.
I am very happy with the amount of properties I have. Thank you. You know, it's interesting because in one sense, I feel like we're honestly at a point where we need to really look at what it would take to get to the next level. And if we want to, again, those barriers of people, money, and maintenance, do you want to do all that? You know, I feel like you have to, I don't know. I really don't have an answer. In some ways I think, yeah, like right now everything's calm, cool, everybody's whatever, cool, give me a couple more. And next month when I handle some other random maintenance thing, like, I don't know if I want to add to that. So I do really like the business, and I feel like I could probably add more to it, you know? And again, I feel like when you start it, it has that complete terror, anxiety. Oh, we have this place and blah, blah, and then it calms down and then you add to it. I think the big thing is how you make it scalable, that if you just, are you trying to just do this with you and your husband, or do you want to add someone in to help you? And does that make sense financially? You know, and I feel like we're at that point where we could still keep doing it, but you know, I mean, we're still married, which is good. I don't know if that next one would break it. No, it wouldn't. But I feel like there's a lot that I still could learn from it. And honestly, when I found out that you were kind of like looking into how you could really help people, I thought that's really cool. Anyway, I feel like I could definitely learn more for sure. And I think it would help me to even make that decision even more clear of like, okay, good, I want to take this next thing and really do this. Because when you're not doing it also as your full-time, which is cool in one way, right? Like we kind of created this whole thing on the side while we still had our other jobs and this other stuff. And then you look and go, wow, thank gosh we have what we have that just was kind of slowly creating itself in the background. Yeah, that is a really big, not giving you an answer, yes or no, but it's just, maybe, you know, but it's like those things I weigh in my head. I think of those things. I'm the one who gets the calls. I'm the this, the that. Where do we want to be in 10 years? Do we want to have this? Do we not? You know, so.
You know, and so for us as a comparison, it's so crazy to think, I think your story is probably what most people would consider to be, okay, good. They got to almost 10 units before they started having a decision of how much attention is this going to take? Yeah. Whereas we got to 200 units before we... Yeah, you took that rubber band and it was like, ding, just... Yeah, well, you know. But that was full time. That was full time for 4 people. Exactly. For Michelle and I and mom and dad. So that's the equation. 2 full-time employees with, you know, 9 properties versus, full-time. I think part of this too is you got to look at what, I feel like Adam and I are at a point where we don't particularly like, we don't want a lot of added stress. Yeah. We want to add more. We want to create more. But it's funny when you get into your, like, we're still young, but we're not, you know, babies, you know? And so you're kind of in that, like, what's the next move? What are we going to, whatever. But I'm very happy that we do have the properties. And I'd say the amount of ability to deal with people on a large scale has become very like, I'm going to think about this before I respond. I'm going to like take some time to look at this and go, what is really the best for the tenant, my property, me, my mental health, blah, blah, blah. Like all this stuff that like, they're not your children. You know, you can't just go like, you can't go yell at your tenants like the way you can your kids. I mean, you know. You yell at your children? I mean, I don't. I've never actually. I've heard that this is a thing that people do when their kids don't
respond back to them. No.
I
But,
get
you know,
it.
being professional, right? And like
Absolutely.
having this, but professional in a effective way. That it's not just like someone calls you and you never call them back because you don't want to, whatever. Like, it's like you have to handle that, you know, and just remember this is an investment. So the moment you start letting your thing just like, whatever, they didn't call me about it, whatever, you know. So, but anyway, yes, happy I have them. Interesting point to be at right now, kind of looking at everything. It's like, where's the market going in 2025? Where, you know, the taxes, insurance are, you know, you got to like look at that and go, wow, they were here when we bought them and they're here now, but what do we still owe on them? And, you know, just like weighing out all that stuff. But, yeah.
So one thing that I like, you guys are actually an example to me for when I think about what people should be doing in this business, especially if it's not your full time, because you have these properties because you didn't get overly significant about those types of questions when you were starting.
That's true, and that's something I can definitely give, you know, you and mom and dad credit for. It was just like, we got the properties, we did minimal things to them to get them rentable, you know, and that was a while ago where rents were quite low at that point, and you could get away with it, I think, back then a lot easier. But you can still do that. There are still ways to, the point is you can get up and running in some of these, in renting properties, knowing that I need to get them to where, let's just get people in there.
I think that is something that a lot of people don't realize. By the way, we grew up with our dad, who's like, I can fix anything, I can do anything, and you can do anything too. A lot of people who buy real estate, they're like, well, a plumber costs $300 an hour, an electrician costs $250 an hour.
Right, here's my Pinterest inspo for this thing, and you know, and like,
it doesn't work though.
Because in a rental property, again, this is this thing with me detaching from my house that I had as a rental, is like, you're putting it, you want it to get a lot of use. You know, it's going to get used. It's going to get broken. It's part of the responsibility of becoming, you know, a landlord, you know?
Which is why the thing about your personal house, about whether or not to make it into a rental, it's something that I go over with clients who are buying a new house.
Yeah.
If the house that they are leaving is stunning, like if you probably never leave this house, but if you ever left this house, it wouldn't make any sense, I think, to rent this.
No.
Because your house is gorgeous, you have beautiful floors and all this stuff. You'd lose your mind to think about people in here.
Right, it's true. And we definitely did in that, that is kind of a funny thing to look at like that. But yeah, I would say you're right on that. Don't, like, detach yourself from something that's going to, like, make you upset like that. It's not worth it.
Because it'll happen.
Yeah, and honestly, you'll make more money doing it that way. Just move it into something else.
So another thing that I think is cool about your guys' story is you guys have been able to have some job changes. And I don't know if we've ever talked specifically about this, but the fact that you have these other properties,
Yep.
I would imagine that makes those decisions a little bit less stressful. Would you?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you know, it's kind of interesting timing because we're still paying them off and there's, you know, we're just chunking stuff into it. But again, the original decision for owning these was, you know, Adam saying like, this is not for now. This is not for now. This is for later. So even though everything we have been doing, yes, it takes money and time and effort and energy and present time, it's for creating the future. And that kind of goes back to even the whole different hats, right, Adam? Like creating this future and putting this thing out there. And me kind of behind the scene, like going, okay, this is what we've signed up for. This is what we're going to do. Is it does put the future out there for you. Mm-hmm. And it's good. It kind of forces you into the future in a good way, because you go, okay, I have this thing, but it's not giving me anything right now, but that's actually really good.
But just keep feeding it.
Yeah. Just keep feeding it. That's actually a good way to look at it. But, in the beginning that was hard, because, your money, your hard-earned money is going into this thing, and there's nothing really, you're just breaking even, or things are not quite up to a point. But, I think, again, that's part of this, like really getting the full hat on how to do it, and not just like seeing somebody who like, oh, I'm successful. Woo. It's like, okay, but like every single person who has what they have, they worked their butt off to get it. They went through all the pain. They know things they'll never do again. But I just feel like there's such I don't know, it's like a lost technology that people don't really like, they don't think about that there's these certain things that work. They just go, oh, well, that guy looks successful. And then.
Like what? Give an example of something.
I mean, like, well, it's even like people asking us, like, oh my gosh, you guys own all this property. That's amazing. I want to do that someday. Yeah. That's all they say.
Talk.
But it's just even a point of like, well, then where, and it's not even I mean, I don't really look at ourselves. I mean, yes, we're successful in that we have them, but it's like, I feel like we're in the process of it. We're in the creating of the future. It's not done. It's like putting it there. So, which is good. You want to have stuff that's not all completed. It's like, you need to have that game.
Something that I am telling, like, about that I'm people who come to me and say, I want to buy an investment property. And then it's like a couple years later and I'm still showing them properties. There's this wrong idea that you're going to get rich with the first property you buy. The first property, you're just going to learn.
Yeah.
You're just going to learn.
That's the sampler if you are done at that point, or that you're going to be like, cool, I could add something to this.
You're never going to get to 9 or 200 if you don't do that first one and go, oh, what's like actually happening in this business?
Yeah. No, it's true. And again, like I said, we got kind of the instant hatting, here, go, just take it, but we also had you guys as like a hotline constantly, and you just realize that is where I think about, if I bought a property without having that
access to Dad and I.
Yeah, that safety net, I would have made a lot more mistakes for sure. But the things that I've learned from it, it's like you just kind of understand your responsibility, your role, what your job is to, I feel like, I've learned so many things from Dad, just different ways to look at stuff that I'm like, that seems so wrong. And then you look back on it and you're like, no, but that's just, that's so right, actually, because it's taking such a full responsibility that it's not a normal way which people operate. People try and give, just fair exchange, like we're just even, and that's one of the things with Dad where I feel like there's constantly, even in the properties, like somebody moves out, you go do something.
That's one of our stable points, is that
you do some improvement.
He said it off the cuff one day, is actually a tenant, we're renovating a unit. And a tenant walked by and he's like, what? You got new floors in here? What? I don't have a fan like that. I don't have this new kitchen. Why doesn't my place look as nice as this? And he said, every tenant is going to get a better unit than the person who was there before. You got a better unit than what the last person who was in your unit. And the next guy, he's going to get a better unit than what you have. And I went, oh, that's policy. We're making that policy. every unit has to be better than the last guy got it.
Yeah.
And you'll be fine.
And it doesn't have to be huge. You know, it can be
It could be a faucet.
It can be a faucet. Exactly. So, but then again, play that back. That's your investment. That's your opportunity, right? Like, you're not going to go in and do a bunch of stuff to a property where it's rented and people are living in it. First of all, they don't want you in their space like that.
Yeah.
You know, and two, it's like, it's doing its thing. So to have it vacant, take your look around, kind of give it that, you know, refreshed thing and send it back on to someone else, I feel like is, it's just you kind of making sure you know what's going on with your place, and that you're giving somebody a nice, again, like my purpose, like give someone a nice place to live that they love where they live.
I don't think it works if you can't think with that. If this is just numbers on a spreadsheet and you get no enjoyment out of the person who lives in your property, and they call you and say, we're having a baby, so we're, you know, like just all the things that happen, if that doesn't mean anything.
Well, gosh, I mean, it's kind of like it is a pretty big deal if you think about it from that standpoint, is that you're giving somebody a place to live.
It's personal.
It's very personal at that point. I feel like I've learned so much about people that you find ways to just kind of like, you step back and go, okay, like this is someone's life. This is not just like, oh, I'm just kind of zipping through stuff. You know, like I had a tenant who recently, like he called me up in the beginning of the year and was like, hey, I just want to let you know, unfortunately, I found out that I have cancer and I have to go through this treatment and I'm not sure how this is going to work out. I mean, this is like my tenant telling me this, and you're just like, you know, the first thought is like, okay, this sucks, but oh my, what's happening with the place? Will they be able to pay their rent? Like all this stuff that kind of comes second. The guy figured out to pay his rent every month. He did all his treatments. And like 2 months ago, called me up to be like, I'm cancer free. And I rang the bell and life's great. And I was like, okay, this is awesome. Like I'm the landlord, you know, and every time the guy called me, whatever, I was rooting for him because I want him to still enjoy that life in my place and whatever. So yeah, you gotta be willing to, again, they're not your kids, but they become part of your life.
Something, stepkids or something.
Can't beat them. Can't yell at them. But you know, that kind of thing where you're like, these people tell you their personal situations, and it's like, it's part of your thing to be interested in helping them. You know, it's like,
at least enough to help them get, you know,
do I need to help you find somewhere else to live? Do we whatever? But it's like, you know, and again, you have all different types of people, and you have other people, you have no idea really what's happening in their life, and that's okay too.
And that's actually the majority of people.
Right.
Majority of your tenants, you won't know that well. They just go to work, they do their life, and it's no big deal. But every once in a while, you're like, you got snakes.
I got snakes, I got things, and I'm like, yeah, so anyway, I am very happy that Adam has pulled us into the future in this whole thing, and given us an opportunity to basically go, hey, let's see what happens here. Oh, we're still here. Let's get another one, you know? Okay, you know, and just this, I have to say, even though we have 9, it was done so conservatively. You know, it was in this like, okay,
it's almost in secret, though, like, oh shit, we got another one.
We have another, right? So, I don't know. Maybe I feel something in 2025. Okay, I feel it.
You can call your realtor when you're ready.
definitely know a guy. Yeah, I mean, and that's another thing. I mean, like you've helped so much, like just, you know, talk about doing it conservatively. I mean, you are definitely the kind of person who puts that out there and makes it safe. Like, hey, I can help you with these things, and you're real about it. You're not like, I just want your commission. I just want this commission. It's like, no, that's a bad decision. Don't do that. You know, and that kind of stuff, like, and I feel like that's something that you've had in you for, you know, just that whole, like, want to inspire people and help them create on these things and have stuff and whatever. Also, I feel like that's a rare thing. A lot of people don't, they look like they're trying to give you something, but they're really thinking about what they get from that thing. But I have to say, successful realtors are they're not gonna last long with that other thing. It doesn't work because this is all through word of mouth and and all that. Again, the 25 other thousand things you do to get something to close.
Yeah.
That whatever, I'm sure you have all your own stories of that stuff too, but but anyway, back on the rental stuff it works when you can put in those 3 points. You have money that you can spend on it. You have, someone who they're totally have that hat on of being the person who is willing to handle people's communication. They're like, call me, tell me what's going on, and that they'd call you because they'd want to tell you that the dishwasher's broken and not go, oof, I could call, but no one's going to do anything,
But it's your property.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's worth it for you.
I was just going to say, it was making me think about, like these bigger properties where you press 1 for this, 2 for maintenance, and it goes somewhere and just you leave a message. The thing about owning your own property, and you're the person getting these phone calls, depending on who you are, if you're just wanting to own the stuff and have someone else do it, fine, you can set up your own thing. But even in that situation, have a person. Don't have a company like that's...
That's something that I don't think I realized how much better Mom and Dad and I were doing it than other people.
Yeah.
Because when you do something and you don't know how other people operate, you just are doing it.
Totally.
I had no idea how much better service we were giving than everyone, basically,
But that concept is very, unfortunately, the customer service aspect of, like, everything has gone tanked and it's okay.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's also part of the success of, like, you want to be there to help handle whatever's going on and let someone know that, you could call them and we'll get that fixed in a short period of time. And it's been, so.
That was something that Dad had said is, you'll have to everyone will have to make a decision if they can manage their own properties. People have other jobs or there's other things. If you can manage your own properties, you will beat the competition. You will do better than the big corporation that you can't get someone on the phone.
Yeah, I did experience that when I do have a vacancy and someone's like, are these yours? Do you own them? Like, and I'm like, yep, you're calling me. And they're like, oh, good. They want that. They want, that there's nothing in between. Mm-hmm. And they know, exactly like you're saying, it's your property, so you're interested. So.
Well, Shayna, I guess everyone now knows Shayna. Yeah.
That is my professional name.
Shayna Miss Alessandrini.
Yes.
I have a lot of admiration for what you and Adam have done. I actually think it's kind of the quintessential what most people should do. Most people don't have $1 billion and they're going to go buy 1 million units kind of a thing. Most people, they're hardworking, they're successful, they're industrious, and they're going to plug along.
Yeah.
And by the time that you guys get to retirement, you're going to be set.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we got it, and I think part of that game is just at this time is to keep creating on it because they're not there yet.
I agree.
And there's a lot more life to live and a lot more things to have to then be able to reap the benefits of that later. And I think the key thing is like making sure you do take advantage of that. And that's where I let Adam, I feel like I've contributed more, I can't give it all, I can see putting that stuff there is very important, but he was way more.
He would have been toast without
totally
doing the actual work.
Yeah, I have the babies, and I'm like, all I can think about is I don't get sleep and this and that. And he's like, let's buy a property. Okay, so I am grateful for that at this point, and I feel like he did make a good decision that we're getting to benefit from, and will continue to as we go on.
Awesome.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right.